And then, and you want to pin me so we have the full screen there?
I'm going to try.
I could probably do it from here, perhaps.
You're a co-host. You may be able to pin yourself, but let me see if I can do it. Spotlight for everyone. That does it. There you go.
Okay. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Great to meet you. This is a great way to start a meeting, to get a little sense of where each of you have been going in your life and currently moving through inventions and tech and physical products. As Doug did the brief introduction, I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole adult life, and I've been doing it probably over 50 years. Got started actually my first business in high school, so I'm definitely a serial entrepreneur, and I've been doing this over 50 years, so you can do the math. And what I've done, I've founded about 3 or 4 companies over the years, and for the past 10 years, I've been acting as a consultant with the specialty of working with inventors to help them take their product idea to market, whether you want to venture yourself and produce the product. And it's one thing to invent and get working with an attorney to get patents, but if you haven't produced your own product and had a company to actually market it, you got a lot more to learn. And so I love being the wingman to help folks to take all those steps and cut down the lead times and the amount of time and energy and money that it takes to learn that on your own. We can all learn it on our own, but it takes time. And I also work with clients to help them go through the process of identifying and figuring out how to go through the licensing process if you choose licensing rather than venturing. And there's hard to find good licensing agents out there. That's a whole other story. But what I want to focus on today is both the creative process of creating a product, finding a need and filling it, how that's informed my professional life, and then looking at comparing my perspective and experience of venturing versus licensing, and the pros and cons of both approaches. So with that said, I'm going to give you a little few minutes background of where I've been. And let's see, Doug, the share screen isn't working now. I don't know why.
All right, just a moment.
Here we go. I got it.
You got it?
Yeah. There we go. Okay. So this is the home page of my website. So what I'd like to go through is the creative process. Some of you have obviously come up with ideas. Some of you are looking for ideas or have lots of ideas. And how do you decide what's the lowest hanging fruit? What do you really want to pursue? And if you're going to venture, what is the best place to put your time and money and energy into, and how to go about making a company out of it? Or if you're going to license, how to go about finding the appropriate qualified potential licensees that have a process to go through to submit your ideas, rather than just throwing out the ideas and hoping nobody knocks you off and not knowing if they have a process to go through or not. So it's important when you go through licensing that you're very careful of who you present it to, that they have a process they have a process set up, that they do NDAs, or they have a whole web area to submit ideas, and they are up and up company. So that being said, I started my first business, let's just say back in high school. I was one of my passions was photography, and I was at 16 visiting San Francisco. I grew up in LA, and saw an idea of someone taking their photographs and sticking them onto a piece of paper, rubber stamping an inspirational verse and putting it in a poly bag to sell it. And I thought, that's a cool idea. And after a few weeks, I went in my darkroom that I had at my parents' house and put together some mock-ups, and one thing led to the next, and I started my first company. Let me just show you the head. So I started a photographic note card company. It's not coming up. Okay, why not? With my photography I'll just do it from here. Sorry. on photographic note cards. So this is on my website. So I just start right here. So I started my first company with these photographic note cards with inspirational verses with 12 designs. I went out door to door and knocked on doors to sell it at retail stores. And one thing led to the next. And over about 10 years, I expanded into different designs, worked with different photographers at the trade shows, the host of trade shows. People would connected with me, and I connected with this wonderful artist with these cute little characters that we did quite well with, and did a huge range of, hundreds of designs and note cards and other artists. And over the years, built that company up. And what was interesting is not only did I, find my network of distribution selling to stores at trade shows and through sales agents in the gift and stationery field, but I got exposed to licensing early on. At one of the trade shows, a company approached me for these whimsical characters to put onto children's products in Japan. And I didn't know much about licensing yet, and I certainly didn't know about the market in Japan. And I talked to a couple of people I knew in the business that had larger companies, and one thing led to the next, and I was introduced to the licensing division of Sony Corporation. And this is back in the early 70s. And turned out they were very successful in that area. They took us on and licensed the little animals, and I had a whole range of small little children as well. And over 3-4 years, when it maxed out, they were doing over $50 million at retail with our designs on dozens of products. And had me come over 3 years in a row to do presentations to the various executives and that were licensees of ours. So it's pretty exciting. And at 23 years old, I remember $50 million one year that they did over there, and I get a check for $50,000 in royalties that I split with my artist. So it's a good exposure to licensing. And I had that company about 10 years, developed other designs with other artists and whimsical such, and with King Tut designs we did. So, it's all I've found over the years, it's about how you differentiate your product or your company's designs, whether it's a physical product or software. What makes you different than other people? Why are people going to buy your product or service? And whether you're producing it yourself or you're licensing it, what differentiates your invention that's going to get the attention, particularly licensing, for them to invest their time and money into your product and into the marketing of it to take it to market and be successful. So I had that company about 10 years, and over time, had to move on. I just overdeveloped it and such, and needed to move on. And I was gifted with another wonderful idea for greeting cards by my sister, actually, that was working in the wine industry at the time, and I had moved up to Northern California. And I developed a range of wine-related note cards I called Grapevine Press, and worked with different artists. And initially brought out, I think, 24 designs. I got an investor to back me, and it was very successful, not only in the wine country to sell into winery tasting rooms, but I already had a distribution network of sales agents around the country that I plugged this into to sell to greeting card stores and gift shops and such. And I had different partners along the way for this to monetize it as far as inventory and such. And along the way, I found that when I was selling to the wineries, there were no sales reps calling on that line of trade at the time, back in the early, this was in the mid-70s, early 80s. And one of my friends in the business said, you need to do it yourself. Just get out there and sell yourself. You know your product better than anybody else. So I got out there and started pounding the pavement, and found out that not only could I sell very well to these places, but that there were other companies that needed representation. And necessity is the mother of invention. I began to represent other companies on a commission basis along with my own product, because just to knock on a door with one product is not very time effective. And I built up a sales organization over a number of years. And then the first 5 years of the sales organization made way more money than I did selling my own product. And as things changed over time, I had an opportunity to sell some little grape jewelry that we found at a trade show, and led me to a supplier of the jewelry that was making little pewter bottle stoppers as a sideline. and I started importing them. I had a marketplace in the wine industry, and that led to my Wine Things Unlimited company. And we started just with a simple grape and other little characters, 6 designs, unpainted, started placing them out there. And I sort of marketed them like the greeting cards and put together display racks and such. And little by little, over 5 years, developed it into hundreds of different designs, including licensing with Looney Tunes and Betty Boop and Cirque du Soleil and Star Trek and such. And within 5 years, hit my first million in sales. That's the brass ring and when you're in sales and marketing. And over the years, I had this company for 25 years, developed, got into engraved glassware, hand-blown glassware with different designs and unique wine openers. We worked with an artist that got us into ceramics, very unique, unusual oil bottles of ceramic. We introduced 6 designs of these. In the first year, we did over $1 million. And we already had a company doing 2 or 3 million at the time, so I had a distribution network. But with the right product, it can hit well. Other products don't hit at all. You just don't know. Developed a whole line of ceramics of different designs of grapes and olives. Got into collegiate licensing and glassware and such. Eventually got into one of the companies I was representing through my sales division was these little wine charms that some of you may have come across to identify whose glass is whose on the wine glass. And it was a silly little product, like an earring for a glass. And one of my reps came to me and said, we should represent this company, and I could produce it myself, but I had another product line that was similar, little paper die cut identifiers, and I didn't want to compete with them locally. Anyway, we started representing this company, and they only had a couple reps out there, 2 housewives doing this thing. The first year we did $750,000 in this product line, just in Northern California. It was crazy. It just hit. And they built their company up to about $6 million a year. It got knocked off by dozens of other companies, but they still did well for a number of years. And they came to me, I don't know, around 1995, I think, and asked me if I would buy their company because it was on the downside. They were still doing about $1 million a year. We negotiated to buy the company, and the disclosures, they came to me and said, oh, by the way, one of our competitors just got the patent for this, for how this attaches to the glass, but we'll put up some money to make sure we take care of you if there's any legal recourse. And I ran it by my patent attorney and said, run, don't walk away from that deal. And as it worked out, I said, you guys, you get a license with the patent holder, and then we'll complete the deal, which is what they did. So we completed the deal, and I paid them a small percentage, and I paid the patent holder a small percentage. But I was able to expand this line, got it and took it into Monopoly and Scrabble designs and such. And we kept this division over $500,000 a year for quite a few years. And worked with another artist to do a whole line of ceramics. He was quite well known in all kinds of products. So, the whole point is it's all about finding what your market niche wants, being creative, and coming up with unique products that you have that you're able to sort of keep in that market in your own area. Now, that's just a brief overview of the companies I've had over the years. And Wine Things is, back in 2000, we maxed out at about $5 million a year. And I also had the sales division. We were selling other companies' products in Northern California, and we were doing close to $5 million a year on that as well. So, it was a good run. And things changed over the years, and the recession hit in 09, 010, 011. By 013, we ran out of working capital. I needed to sell it off, and then got into consulting, which I love doing. So I have a lot of expertise in product development, production, marketing, licensing on both sides of the fence. And I realized I had a lot to share. And I love working with inventors to help you, get your dream product out there. Now, what I've developed as I've worked with clients over the years and my own projects as well, it's so tempting to want to license your idea and sit back and get passive income. And I'm sure you've all got some of you may have had success with that, or have heard people like Warren talk about his success with certain products and such. My personal experience is that it's hard to get a deal. And not only that, but once you get a licensing deal, you have to hope that the company puts enough marketing dollars behind it and that your item fits their product mix properly to where it rises to the top enough to where it does $1 million or more per year. Because in the current marketplace, I found it, because I took a few products on as a licensing agent 3-4 years ago. And I found the hard way that the licensing, when I was paying artists and Looney Tunes and Cirque du Soleil and such, we paid 10%. That's a nice royalty to receive. And the artist that did these chefs and some other products for me, she was making $200,000 a year with us when things were peaking. That's really good money. What I found out for inventions is that most companies will only pay an average of 3%. 5% if you've got a product that you've already proven in the marketplace and you've got some numbers and such. Just like you see on Shark Tank, those investors usually don't put any money into a physical product unless they have a good track record, whether he's doing 50,000 or 500,000 or 5 million. They want to see that it has proven concept in the marketplace before they put their risk capital of development, inventory and marketing resources behind it. So the pros in licensing, of course, is that you have passive income and you have of your invention and your patent expenses. And if they do well, you'll hopefully make 30 grand, 150 grand, 100 grand or more a year. But if I always say, like in my company, 5 million a year, even I was doing 2 million a year. If I could bring in a new product line that did 200,000 or 300,000 a year, I'm thrilled. But as an inventor, getting 3 to 5% on that, that's $10,000 or $15,000. It's nice extra money for you, but you can't make a living at it. So my experience that it's informed me over the last few years of working with clients and a couple of my own inventions is that if we can get the product to market and get a track record over a year or two, we have a better opportunity to come back to the potential licensee with some numbers. And if the product fits their product range and they have a licensing program in place, we can often negotiate a 5, 6, 7% royalty rather than a 3% or 4%. And of course, it takes some time and energy and money to do that, to do your own venture. But that's what I find is working better. And just to go through a couple of companies that I've represented, that I've consulted with, these folks came to me, this was about 3-4 years ago, and they were halfway through the production stage. They already done the patents and such. And I helped them go through refining it and such and getting it to market. And it's a cute product. They happen to be right in my ball game because I've been doing bottle stoppers for years. And they had a tough go of finding their niche. It's a unique product, but there's a lot of kinds of bottle stoppers out there. And the owner, he really wanted to have all his ducks in a row production-wise and wanted everything to be perfect. He was really a perfectionist on the way the rubber goes together and the plastic and this and that. He spent so much time and money with his suppliers to refine it before he took it to market. And I personally didn't feel that the consumer would see those differences, but he felt differently. So they worked for 3 to 5 years to get this to really get some leverage, and it never really hit enough to make it a full-on business. One of my first clients, it's not this product, but it got me into this product, was through a mutual friend. This woman, she and her husband have very successful veterinary clinics, and she is an entrepreneur and wanted to take an idea and make a product. And she had this idea of doing a biodegradable urn that goes in the ground, just a paper sleeve, and grow a tree, like a family tree, for the remains of your pet or your family member. And as she looked into the research of it, she found that there was a company in Spain already doing something very similar to her idea. And she didn't have it was not in her wheelhouse to work with a factory overseas and import, and there was some FDA issues and such. So she got in touch with me and I helped her through it. It took about 6 months and worked with the factory, worked with the FDA, got their first container in, and then helped them market it for a couple of years into the funeral industry. And it got some traction, but never really took off. And I had told her early on, we should give people a real tree, like a bonsai urn, or a tree that's a year old, not just a couple of pine tree seeds, hoping that you could grow a tree from a seed. That's a big ask. I have a garden. It's hard enough to grow a vegetable from a seed. I prefer getting starts. And so after a couple of years, we weren't doing much together. I left working with him as a sales agent, but I had this idea of doing a bonsai tree in a ceramic pot. And I found that I was able to, I got really enamored with it, work with a product engineer to come up with the insert. It was patentable, to hold the cremains and a tree in the center. I spent a lot of time and money putting this together as my own company. I figured I knew the funeral industry from working in it for a couple of years, and got it patented and such. Put it out there, got some limited success, and but got enough numbers behind it and exposure that over a couple of years, I had met some people along the way that ended up doing a similar in the ground biodegradable urn, and they eventually became a distributor for me, and I licensed them to do this exclusively last year. So it's in their product line. It's called the Living Urn, but the numbers haven't hit yet for me to make the kind of money that I'd like to make out of it. And they're putting their resources behind it, but it's just one of many items in their line. It does fit the line very well. But again, I'm here, I license my own invention to a perfect licensee, and they're doing probably at least a couple million a year in sales. And the sales haven't gotten to where I'm earning any kind of money that I like to see on this. So even though I have a great licensing deal, the sales aren't there yet. This is the other story that I'm involved with, then I'll go a little bit more into the numbers and such. But this couples that developed this product, they originally called it the sweater hammock. And instead of a clothesline, it's a closed net that goes out up to 6 feet above your washer, dryer, or bathtub, so you can dry the hand washables flat. I love the product, great idea. They asked me, they'd already patented it, spent a lot of money on patenting and some digital prototyping and engineering, and they just wanted to license it. And I went, great, this is wonderful. I took it on as an agent for a percentage, shopped the houseware market, found some good interest, worked with a company that's about a $300 million company, perfect fit for them. And at the end of the day, the VP said, we just acquired 3 companies. This is one item. It's not fully engineered. You don't have a prototype. You don't have any sales yet. It's going to get lost in our company. And I went back to the owners. I said, look, guys, it's a wonderful product. People love it, but it's not licensable yet. Come back, and if you want to venture it, let me know. They came back to me a few months later and said, we want to venture it. We'll put our money into it. We don't have enough expertise to run a business. Would you come in as a partner? And I liked it enough that I said yes. So I took on a percentage of the business, sweat equity for the last 3-4 years. Had great response at the houseware shows. We pre-launched it in 17 and 18 and 19. Had some production challenges. By the time we got our first container, our first shipment in March 1st, 2020, everything closed down because of COVID. We were going to the houseware show 2 weeks later for the 3rd time. And of course, the housewares and hardware show closed down. So I had to pivot and take this product out to online only to the consumer through Amazon, which we've done. And it's done fairly well, consistent sales overall, but it's not gotten the kind of sales volume to where we can make much money on it yet. And we're in the process right now of trying to really find the right licensee for this, because we have sales, we have a success track record. It's selling, people love it. But the way to leverage it, you need to have enough capital to really hire the consultants that really do Amazon all day and have the money to put the ad money in, for a few months to really find your metrics and be able to quantify and grow it. So that's the pros and cons and ins and outs of what I've been up to. Now, what I like to say about the venturing is, and that's been my area of success, is venturing on my own for sure. Certainly starting with the greeting cards and the bottle stoppers and being able to build out a whole product line. with one product or a short product line, a short range of products, and I have clients, you can start a company for $5,000 or $10,000 if it doesn't require expensive tooling and large minimums. Other companies, you may have to, with like the laundromat and the bonsai urn, you would spend $15,000 to $25,000 on tooling for the injection molding. And the laundronet, most companies want a 3,000 piece minimum. I'm usually able to negotiate with the factory to get it down to 1,000 pieces, but even 1,000 pieces at $25 or $30 a unit, you still got 25 or 30 grand investment, plus shipping costs to get it here from China usually. But the point is that you can do your own product for anywhere from 10 or 15,000 to 50 or 60,000, plus your websites and such. And you have the opportunity to have a very successful business over time, or build it up to where you can then license it off. On the licensing, as I said, licensing is great if you find the right partner and are able to make a deal to get a decent percentage, or it's the perfect item for that client and they really can, and you're able to negotiate. Often with the licensing deal, if you have a strong enough invention, you can negotiate to get a minimum guarantee per year and an upfront guarantee. But again, it takes a lot of success in the product to where you have the right mix with that licensing client to get that kind of a deal. So I think that's probably a good enough overview right now. I'd like to open up to Q&A and have you guys ask questions that relate to what you're doing, how I can help you here. And of course, I'll post a link at the end. You're welcome to contact me. I'm happy to send you a white paper on my ideas of launching versus licensing. And of course, you're welcome to set up a free consultation with me to see how I can assist you. So I'll turn back to you, Doug, and anyone that wants to ask some questions. I'll take the share off here.
Are there any questions? You're muted. I think, Roger, you're trying to ask something?
Yeah, I was just trying not to make any noise while I was moving around.
Yeah.
So David, my physical project, I'm going into transportation. Specifically, I'm trying to get a piece of my technology into the ski lift, gondola, tram market. I've invented a new way to deliver electricity, and I can put electricity into those moving systems as they move through the air. This company, they're the largest company in the world, actually, who design and build those systems. They have a need, they need to put electricity into their gondolas for the American market because it's so untapped here. But they said to me, look, we need to see this technology working. So they've actually brought me a ski lift client, say, hey, if you can make that sale, we'll install it. We can see how it works. And then from there, we take it to the bigger market. I mean, the ski lift market's a nice market, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's much bigger markets out there. So that's where I'm at. It's a cable, okay? It's a patented cable that delivers electricity in a whole new way, and a device called a transconnector, which pulls power off of that cable in a unique way. It actually moves and takes the power and puts it right into those moving systems. In the future, I want to go to trains, I want to go to subways, I want to go to all those, because you can unify and get rid of the third rail, pantograph, and just have one system that's putting power to and simplify all of that. So that's.
And so what's your challenge to get that?
Believe it or not, I'm an inventor, right? I'm a creator, I'm a designer, but writing a white paper, that's not my cup of tea. And I need to have this polished white paper because I'm going to one ski lift company who I've been talking to, right? And from there, this company wants me to go to the National Ski Association. They have 500 members, which represents 27,000 ski lifts operations across all of the US. but I want to do a test. I'm thinking in my mind, let me just test it with this one company that I know, this one ski lift operator, who's an early adopter by nature, right? And see how that goes, how the presentation works. Does he buy it? Before I reach out to the whole organization. So that's, yeah.
And so do you have a timeline? Did you have the cables that you have ready to go that you can
So
plug in?
so this cable, right, is unique. I found a manufacturer actually in Connecticut who could make it. They're going to need a little bit of cash because they're going to have to make some changes to produce this. I haven't engineered that second device because I need a little capital for that, but I've got a company who will engineer this, right? And it makes perfect sense. They want me to get the manufacturer, then they will engineer it based on how they put things together, what they work with, what's their specialty, which all makes sense. So kind of going at it that way, but I don't have that manufacturer, right? But I want to make that presentation and make that first sale. I think you see where I'm at, right? There's questions.
Well, yeah, and it's the old chicken and the egg. So it sounds like you're almost there. It sounds like you need to get a little more capital to be able to complete your product design engineering and find and connect them and find a manufacturer so you can actually make the prototype to go and proof of concept with the local ski lift operator to show them it works, and then be able to sell it to somebody else as well, and then eventually take it to the trade shows and the big organization.
Yeah, I mean, I built my own prototype. I mean, I can actually show that technology working. I did it for the big company. They said, okay, we see it. Yep, that works. Now go see if the market's going to buy it, which makes sense because this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I'm a startup. You know how that, I'm going to have to explain how that,
Well, it sounds like you've got a great connection, just like the other gentleman has a connection with Amazon.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a perfect connection to get this going. So, you might reach out to some of the members that might be able to help you, take that next step as far as capitalizing those next areas that you need to do, or friends and family. And also, get in touch with me afterwards, and we'll have a longer conversation.
Okay.
And I can also see what I can do, and also refer you to some people that might be able to do some of those areas.
Okay, great.
David, thanks for the presentation. That's quite a broad range of deals. Can you talk a little bit about making the agreement or like the contract with the licensing when you're licensing your technology to somebody else?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a client that I had took on as an agent about 3-4 years ago, met through an organization, through some mutual friends. He had a great concept. It was, when you go to Starbucks, they have those tall plastic the tumblers, and they'll have the logo on there. He came up with an idea and they're double-walled acrylic tumblers. He had an idea to use a miniature motor in the base of the tumbler, and some little solar panels on the inside to get light to power it, and it would rotate the images inside of the double-walled tumbler. So now, instead of having a static image of Starbucks or whatever, you would have an image that could rotate. And I thought it was great. And I went out, I found a company that was perfect for it. They did a lot of characters and such. And I negotiated with this company. It's probably a $20 million company. I negotiated with them. They used a licensing agent on their behalf to do a deal. And we went through their contracts. I negotiated with them based on their projections of where the sales could be. They wanted a 5 or 10 year contract. We worked on an upfront guarantee. We worked on annual guarantees. It took me a year back and forth with this agent to get it finally ready. And when they presented the contract to me to present to my client, it was not what we had agreed upon at all. They had 2 or 3 years until they had anything to actually perform, and it was just the wrong deal. And I talked to my client, and I went back and said, this is not what we had negotiated. And she went back to the owner, and bottom line is, this item wasn't fully patented. The patent hadn't been issued yet. And they said, we're not going to put 100 grand, but they figured it would take them 100 grand in tooling and development costs before they could take this to market, and inventories and such. And they said, we're not going to put our money into this until you have a full patent. And I went back to my client, and they had some issues, and it never got fully patented, so we had to drop the whole thing. But in answer to your question, John, your potential licensee should have, if they have experience in licensing, they will have a template they're already using. And then it's just a matter of negotiating based on their projections of what they can do with your invention. You want to look at getting a 3 to 5 year deal, generally speaking. And you want to have them give you their conservative estimates of what they feel they can do revenue-wise, and negotiate on a percentage. Do your best to try to get an upfront. If you don't have it in the market, it's a little hard to get an upfront money, but sometimes you can get, anywhere from 2 grand to 10 grand upfront money to have they have a little skin in the game. But I try to negotiate with the licensee to at least get an annual guarantee over those 3 to 5 years. Okay. So again, that gets them to commit some more dollars into the game besides the money they're going to have to put into develop it, produce it, inventory it, and market it, which is a lot of skin, a lot of risk capital on their part. But also, if they've got some upfront or some money they've committed to you in the contract, it also pushes them forward to do it, right? Because companies have a lot of other products in the pipeline. They have a lot of other products they're developing. Also, you have to remember, everybody, when you take on when I take on a new product as a company, when I have my company for 25 years, it can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to develop and get that product into the marketplace. It doesn't happen overnight. So, typically it takes 6 to 12 months to go through the development phase and get it ready for market and then start selling it. And some companies will get it ready to sell. They'll start selling it, but they'll tell their clients that they'll have it ready to deliver in 3 to 6 months. So again, you get a window of anywhere from 12 to 24 months till you're going to see $1 besides any upfront guarantees.
Thanks.
Does that help, John? And I can also, if you get a deal pending and, beyond what your attorney can do, if you want any, additional support from myself, I do that with clients, based on what I can come into the conversation, or even help negotiate with the licensing on your behalf with the company.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask a question, please?
Who's that?
It's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, David. I was just curious. I built an invention. It's a poolside chemical balancing system for a pool, which there are many systems that currently exist to meet these needs, but they're prohibitively expensive, so much so that 80% of residential pool users manually dose their pools with chemicals as opposed to doing it in an automated fashion. It's also a $2 billion a year industry just in the US alone. So I've developed a system. I'm on my second prototype. This one is a digital prototype. The first one was analog. I'm at a point where I have a product that is functional and that works very well, but I'm questioning what route I want to go down, whether it's licensing or starting a venture. And I was wondering really what my sort of first steps are in terms of getting investors for it, as I know that I have to have something that's a fully hatched idea to attract investors, but it's very difficult to go through the manufacturing process without investment. I was wondering if you have some advice on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. It sounds like a really interesting product. We've got a pool here, and we have a pool guy that takes care of it, but that's a little more expensive than having an automated system. So I think the next step, the good news is that you don't have to have investors to be able to understand what market might be from the extent of what is it going to cost you and what is it going to sell for.
Right.
Because in order to license it, you're going to be in a better position if you know what the actual landed cost is going to be, whether you produce it domestically or overseas, what's this product going to cost? What kind of molding costs are going to be involved, whether they're here or overseas? Or it's like in what you're doing is probably injection molded plastic with an electric piece in it. And I've got a good, excuse me?
And I have some quotes for injection molded parts for it.
Yeah, good. So the point being, you want to get quotations for the product, what the piece might cost to produce it and what the mold costs are going to be. That way you can do it, and what the minimum run is going to be, right? And do your best to negotiate as low as you can, rather than having to buy 5 or 10,000 units. Try to get 1,000 units and pay a little bit more for them. You offer, I know your minimum is 5,000, but can I pay you more and just do 1,000? So I limit my initial investment and until I get a marketplace, until I get the volume in the marketplace, and then we'll get our costs down as we get the production quantities up. So if you have those numbers in place, you can put together a projection to propose to potential investors, whether you get investors to venture it, or you're going to go to license it. You can at least talk to a appropriate licensee that has again, I'm going to stress it again for those of you who don't know it. You can buy all kinds of programs out there to tell you how to license yourself and spend money with InventRight or whatever, and that's all great. But what's really most important is you don't set yourself up to get ripped off by presenting your idea to a company before finding out if they have a licensing process in place and if they're open to doing licensing deals. Because I talked to people at the Houseware show, for example, with that with the lauder net. I didn't tell them exactly what it was, and I had 2 or 3 companies tell me straight out, it sounds interesting. I didn't tell them exactly. I just said, I have a new kind of drying rack system. Do you do a licensing? 2 or 3 big companies that would have fit perfectly said, we only work with our own in-house designers. If I had shown them what I was doing, they would have thought, great idea, and they might have thought, hey, we'll show this, we'll tell our designers about this, and they'll make up their own. So it's really, really important, if you're going to go the licensing route, to only show your product to companies that have a program in place for licensing. And if they're a smaller company, try to get them to sign a non-disclosure. Big companies may or may not do that. And it doesn't really make a difference, because if a company signs an NDA and they rip you off anyway because they know you don't have deep pockets, so sue me, right? I'm a multi-million-dollar company and you're an inventor. You're going to really sue me? You have the money to sue me? It costs $100 grand in a couple of years to go through that process. I always say, if you're going to get knocked off, hope they do it well. There's enough sales on the table that you can get an attorney on a percentage basis to go after them, and you all make money together and you get a licensing deal. So it's first to market, you protect yourself. You got a year and a half run if you got a really good idea that does well before they knock you off if they want to, get around your patent. But basically, back to you, Mike, it's that, get your costs in line to help you put together the white paper, like you were talking about, Roger, to put together a white paper, to put together a proposal to show investors, or to even go to a licensing deal. If you know what your basic costs are going to be and your basic minimums and your mold costs, you're in a lot better position to negotiate, either to show the investor, well, this is what I need for inventory, this is what I need for mold costs, this is what I need for my website, this is what I need for etc. And so we need another 25 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever, or a million, whatever it is. So that's my short answer.
Dave, I got a basic question about fabrication.
Yes.
If you've got a high temperature 3D printer and you can make the so-called buck for a thermoplastic mold instead of an injection mold, aren't you better off?
It depends on what kind of production run you're doing, Doug. You can certainly do a 3D prototype for most anything in injection molded product. As far as making your production mold to do your injection mold casting, that I would say would be up to the facility that's going to do your production runs.
Yes, what I'm thinking is that for a short production run, maybe thermoplastic is a better alternative than injection mold. Just because if you're doing a couple of hundred to test the market, you don't want to do the investment in the casting.
Absolutely. You're not going to, I would never suggest you invest 15 to 25 grand or 50 grand into molds and only produce a couple hundred units. It's a waste of your money. You want to do 3D or find other ways to do it to produce a couple of them or a couple hundred or whatever. absolutely.
And the other question I have you tried any of this crowdfunding to test markets?
Yes and no. I've certainly looked at that over the years for my projects and for a couple of my clients. And I had the opportunity to talk to 2 or 3 inventors at trade shows that went the crowdfunding way. And the couple that did really well and they raised 100 or 200 grand is that they said, how do you get people to notice your product on, on either of the main crowdfunding companies? And that the way you do that is as a marketing campaign, a social media campaign. So I said, and to put together the proper presentation online on either of the main ones out there. It said that it's the 2 or 3 guys told me that it takes it can take up to 200 man hours to do the whole presentation properly, that it really gets people's attention to get them to invest. And then they had to put this one company, because we put 50 grand into the consulting and advertising to raise the 100 grand. I mean, to raise, to sell 100 grand, that our profit was 50 grand, so we broke even. But it gave them some initial sales and some exposure. So I haven't had personal experience with it, but I talked to 2 or 3 people that did well, but they told me they had to put a lot of money into it. And at the end of the day, they broke even. So, you see other ones that have, huge success. And it's like anything, if you're the one that has the great success for licensing or crowdfunding, it's great. If you don't, then you spend a lot of time and money and slowly go forward.
Thank you. Any other questions?